Hey everyone, welcome back. So let's discuss today the role Jesus had, or what he may still have in us escaping this realm, this matrix. So, as I mentioned in the previous video, Jesus was tied, um, whether it was himself, which I don't believe to be, but whether it was the people that wrote the Bible, or the entities that currently use him. He was tied to the moon. Okay. Now in the Bible, he's tied to the sun, also, alluded to as Venus. But ultimately, I think they're referring to the moon. And that's because I've said before that Lucifer is the moon, and they tied Jesus to Lucifer. Okay. If you haven't seen those connections, check out some previous videos on the channel. But essentially, the morning star can be Venus, can be the sun, what comes up in the morning, what star, the sun, but it can also be the moon, because in the morning, you're mourning something. You're mourning the death of the moon. And they tie Jesus' name to Lucifer with gematria equaling 74, both of them. Now, let's backtrack a little bit, and as I, discuss what I found in the New Age, you can see that you can be even glad that you may have participated in this movement, because what they've done to Jesus and to show their plans in the afterlife is very apparent once joining the New Age movement. It's sort of like joining a secret society, and maybe you don't get a taste of the ultimate goal. You don't find out that it's all a delusion while you're in the movement, but you do find out what they're trying to convince you of, right? They push their agenda onto you so that it becomes appealing towards you, right? And mainly what is pushed is this idea of fifth dimension, right? New Earth. Now, how do they plan on doing this? Well, they tell you to wait for an event. Now, this is, right off the bat, is going to sound similar to the Rapture, which we will draw parallels to. But this event, basically, they're implying that, okay, there will be some sort of solar flash or something in which it will create chaos on this world or something. I guess I never really connected how the chaos would start, potentially. But the chaos would happen. Then these beings in ships will show up as, let's say, the Galactic Federation. And they will tell you, listen, you need to come with us on these ships. We will rescue you and take you to 5D, basically. Or they speak of ascending directly by making the choice to go there as well. You see, it's very devious and very manipulative, because on one hand they talk about this idea of a new Jerusalem, but where is this new Jerusalem? And off the bat, why Jerusalem? Jerusalem is very much tied to the Merkaba, not the Merkaba, but the Star of David, which can be a representation of the Merkaba. But the Star of David, is Israel. It's tied to Saturn, but also Isis, Ra, El, which is Egypt. So all of a sudden, red flags, boom, New Jerusalem. Okay, this idea of Saturn, this idea of Galactic Federation being on Saturn, boom, red flags. We know Saturn isn't looking to benefit us. It isn't looking to help us. It's looking to entrap us in the matrix, more than likely, to keep us trapped in 3D. Or if 3D ends, to create another reality to trap us in. And there was someone I was talking to recently, actually yesterday, who is really amazing, and I would love to have her on the show, or on the the channel, because she's got some crazy experiences that she can talk about. But she was discussing how she's she's a seer. She has very powerful clairvoyance, and when working with gurus, let's say for spiritual help, um, those gurus can see stuff through their third eye, but she can see it much clearly. She can see it in a higher level in comparison to them. And these gurus, they're working, with all these gods from the Vedas or whatever spiritual entities, false light entities they're working with. And all they're doing is basically putting that guru or these gurus in a state of autopilot in which they start usurping their energy, boof, boof, and whoever they come in contact with, and basically teach. And they're creating false heavens in which they promise this guru that you're going to get into heaven with us and you'll be so very happy. But what they don't realize is that they are the ones powering the whole simulation, which is what's happening here. And it may feel like a false heaven, or it may feel like a heaven, but it's false. They're still feeding these entities, right? It's just another realm in the astral, another energy dimension, which is exactly what this fifth dimension will be. Except it will most likely be held on the ship, on this New Jerusalem that they're calling, which can house however many millions of people, which is why they have to, kind of trim or, diminish the population, because they can't hold 7 billion people. And who knows if there even are 7 billion people, half of them likely being NPCs regardless, so they have no use for those people. So, imagine being on a ship, which is potentially what we could be on right now as well. It's alluded to in Dark City, somewhat alluded to in The Truman Show, and some other movies that I can't think of right now. But in Dark City, John gets to the end of the city, and there's a wall with this banner of what he considered his place of growing up, this beach filled with water, except he couldn't find it. It wasn't anywhere. It was just one of his memories. And when he tried breaking through that wall, he saw space. And then we get an overview of what he's on, and it looks like a giant floating rock, but also similar to a spaceship. Looks like kind of like a dish, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying that's the true form of the Earth or whatever, but who knows? At this point, we could be on a spaceship, and we may not even realize it. Yet, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to then put you into these transformation chambers, the med beds, right? Sound familiar? For you to then upload your consciousness, whether it will then be into a digital body, right, in a virtual reality that they can just plug you into and create another version of Earth that is simulated, or whether it's a hybrid alien body. See, all these bodies, they're more deeper and deeper traps, right? We start with the astral body. We're like, okay, it's not so bad. We can move around. We can be multidimensional. Then we go into the etheric body. Oh, okay, it's not so bad. We're colorful now, basically auras. And then you get the physical body. Okay, this is not so bad. We can run, it's physical. We can touch things. It's so interesting. And then all of a sudden you start feeling pain and hunger and sex drive and thirst and all the needs that you have down here. And oh, wait a second, this is a trap. Yeah, of course. It's a limiting form that more than likely you didn't necessarily choose fully to experience. Okay, so they make these hybrid bodies. It will essentially be like the medical inhibition bodies, in which the spirituality is completely gone, right? You have no way of tapping into that anymore. So now Jesus, what I think may have happened is, back whatever it was 2,000 years ago, the Christ entered this matrix. I think it may be at a midpoint in the actual timeline before things converge and basically go downhill, and this split happens, right? Because there's the idea of the rapture. Now, this rapture, what the Bible may have done, I don't think they just make things up out of thin air. I think it's based in something, but what they do is they usurp it, they change it, they manipulate it to fit a narrative. they do that with everything, right? So they take, just like they took this idea of Jesus and they tied it to astrology, they tied it to whatever, Cesare Borgia, right? They tied it to the Egyptian mythology. They take everything and they manipulate it to fit a narrative. So what they did with the rapture is they manipulated it to fit the narrative of a savior. Oh, you will be saved if you just believe in Jesus Christ, right? That's all you have to do. But no, that rapture, I think, happens through the inner work, through the actual realization of where you are, who you are, and the union with your higher self. And then that eventually leads to you ascending, actually ascending, right? So again, New Age took this ascension, manipulated, twisted it, and turned it into 5D. Oh, all of a sudden you're going to 5D, to the new earth, the new Jerusalem on our spaceship. Welcome to your bed. Here you go. And Christ entered at that specific point in time. He said, I will enter into their prison, into the midst of their prison, that of the body. And under the being now known as Jesus. And his simple being here, first of all, left the essence of the Christ consciousness, right? Every time someone dies, or every time someone's incarnated and then dies, their essence is still lingering, I believe. It's sort of a remnant, right? And so at this point, whenever a character is created, these beings can just take that character and make copies of it, right? Or it doesn't even have to be that character. It can be of the image that they fed you, more than likely based on something else, right? The image of Jesus Christ is based on Cesare Borgia from the Roman Empire. So that lingering Christ effect is more than likely helping the true souls, true sparks, to come in contact with that consciousness, to expand and expand and expand, to understand that likely what happened is Christ came in to break the bondage of this prison, to break the bondage of karmic debt to these archons, and act as a sacrifice for our sins, right? That really were bestowed upon us. We didn't do anything wrong. The only thing we did wrong was potentially creating this reality ourselves for these archons and coming down here into it, right? So it was our own mistake, not necessarily that we did something wrong. And what it did through that sacrifice was it created a way out, because then he had to leave. So he shot up as he had ascended potentially in this life, and upon death, he was able to shoot out. I think he may have gotten stuck somewhere along the way and may have needed some help, but he did create then that pathway. He broke the eggshell of the demiurge, of the snake. We've seen the snake surrounding the egg, and we've seen and we've heard the earth described as an egg, right, with the yolk potentially being the actual physical plane that we're on. But now the thing is, they use this against us, right? You remember the little boy fishing on the moon in the DreamWorks logo, right? Oh, it got dark. You guys can still see me. You're fine. It's just a shadow. But Jesus is the fisher of souls, or the fisher of men. And then we've heard of the fisher of souls, right? That's what the DreamWorks logo is alluding to, the moon. And I remember I told you that Jesus is tied to the moon, or they made him tied to the moon in that way. So what they do now is, like I said, they take his after image, or his image that was portrayed to us. And if you study NDEs, a lot of them say they meet various versions of Jesus, whether he's freakishly tall, or he's, this beautiful being of light. He is the image that they use as the fisher of souls to reincarnate people back into this matrix. Because, of course, you're going to think you're in heaven if all of a sudden you see Jesus walking up to you and you don't know any better. oh my God, he's so beautiful, he's so kind, he's so friendly, he's explaining all these things to me. But no, just like we see in the New Age, they have these ascended masters, and they have one guy who is basically made out to be Jesus. The being's name is Sananda, right? And even made after the sun, which the sun is likely a counterfeit. It's not the real way out, right? And that's why I would like to have this guest on, because I was discussing this with her yesterday. So they use this version of Jesus to create this false light image, and people that don't have discernment, that don't always ask, hey, show me your true form, or intendant, or have any intention to leave because they don't know any better. They don't know that false realms or false heavens exist. They think earth is all that is, and there's only heaven and hell. They don't know any better. They don't ask questions. They're not privy to it. So they get recycled, right? Jesus says, oh yeah, it's great over here, and you still got to go to the karmic committee, you got to do your life review and see what you did good, what you did bad, and then you got to go back, because it's for your evolution, right? And people feel like, oh wow, I met Jesus, like he's so cool, he was so nice to me, blah blah blah. And it's just a marketing campaign. It wasn't really Jesus, it was just that false light entity. And there's all of these antichrists, right? That are going to come in and pose as Jesus or whatever, because religion is a very heavy belief system here that they can use to sway minds and potentially convince people to get on these ships, right? So that's how this idea of Jesus has been used against us, when really it was meant to help us, right? To guide us. It wasn't necessarily to save us, or although it could have been, say, hey, basically someone coming to bail you out, like, hey, I paid the bond. But if that person doesn't know that their bond was paid, they just won't leave. Kind of like the elephant that grows up attached to a hook in the ground by a rope, by the leg. And, at first it's not strong enough to pull it, but when it grows up, it is strong enough. And it just thinks that it will never pull it out, right? So if you don't know that you can leave, you won't. And if you don't know there's something to leave from, you also won't, right? It's a mental as well as physical, as well as energetic prison. So that reminder, that simple gnosis, right? A lot of these mystics, a lot of esoteric knowledge talks about gnosis, finding the gnosis within, finding self-gnosis, self-knowledge. And that's what this is, really, I believe. And now that rapture can potentially happen before our deaths here, right? I feel like we are getting closer into this timeline, but it won't happen to you, for example, if you don't do the work, if you don't let your higher self begin to guide you. If you're constantly in the ego, making poor decisions, attaching you to this world, and you haven't been actively detaching, you haven't been actively understanding the downsides of both negative and positive emotions, creating a high or a bond, whether it's traumatic or addictive, to this realm, then you'll just be stuck in the loop, stuck in the astral desires, because your astral body will be so heavily weighed down by these desires, by these energies, attachments, that you won't be able to shoot up and out, right? So, we'll get more into that potentially on this channel, more than likely. Next video should be about what all the life paths can do to exit the matrix. So we'll go from 1 through 9, and then 11, 22, and 33. What each life path or each being bestowed with this energetic karma onto them, the life path number, the numerology, what they can do, what each number has as specifics to let go of, to be aware of, so that they can alleviate themselves of that energy, that karma, right? Yeah, all right, that's enough. Okay, if you guys liked the video, give it a like. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Continue the conversation. Subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.